Welcome to Meeples on Meeples, episode 26. I'm Adam.
Andrew.
Brian.
Ian.
Before we get into our game of the week this week, we want to remind you, of course, to come over to our Facebook page, facebook.com/MeeplesOnMeeples, as well as our website, meeplesonmeeples.com. On our website, you'll find all of our Game of the Week announcements, our videos for the week, and any other news we happen to throw up there. We also are putting up now component shots of all of our games that we play, so you get a close-up of all the pieces and be able to see those real well. And then we'd, of course, like to have you come over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel over there. This will be the last week we'll be promoting it, but we are still doing our giveaway, of a $20 Cool Stuff Inc. gift certificate to one lucky YouTube subscriber. So if you get over to YouTube before February 28th, 2013 at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time and subscribe to our YouTube channel with a valid YouTube account, your name will be put into the hat so we can draw.
Your middle name must be John.
Your middle name must be... Hey, we're just getting all the...
A lot of rules.
A lot of the legal requirements out here. You subscribe to our account before 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Your name will be put in the hat. We'll draw one lucky winner for a $20 Cool Stuff Inc. gift card and go from there.
All right, this week's game of the week is Sentinels of the Multiverse. It is the enhanced edition, meaning basically version 2.0 when they kind of rebooted it with better artwork and components and whatnot. But basically it's a superhero deck game, not a deck building game. Because what you do is each player chooses one hero, and that hero has a pre-made deck for them. So, for instance, this character is flipped over. The Visionary. This is your character card. Tells you how many hit points you have and everything on the card here. Tells you what their power is, and then you play cards from their deck. Now, what you're doing is it's cooperatively, like the Justice League, so to speak. You are a superhero group. You are fighting a super villain. And there's 10 heroes to choose from to play. There are, what is it, 4 villains? Four villains in here before you add expansions. And then that's the villain you're playing. And that villain has his or her own deck and number of hit points and a card that explains how that villain's turn will play out. And then the last thing you do is you make sure that there's an environment, the city or wherever you are there, this big showdown is taking place. So, the way it works is the villain goes first, then you go clockwise around the table, the heroes take their turns, and then the environment will play a card, basically. And so the hero cards are, you're playing powers that might do damage to them, that might heal yourself, and every character plays differently. We'll talk about that in our likes and dislikes and whatever. We'll get to that in a second. The villain, meanwhile, will be playing minions, dealing damage to you, healing itself, playing its own cards. And then the environment might have things from, I mean, there's a city, there's Atlantis, depending where you are, but there might be like there's a space station one, I know, for instance, where there's like an oxygen leak, and that'll cause something to happen. There'll be cards that might damage you. There'll be cards that might require you to save things, like stop like a derailing monorail.
There are cards in the environment that actually help you too. It isn't always bad.
That's
it can
true.
Actually be a benefit to the heroes.
So basically it's like something's going on somewhere else in the city that you have to stop that before you can continue fighting the villain, or while fighting the villain, basically, is how the theme kind of fits together. And
the rules are actually there's not a lot of actual rules in the rule book, because what you're playing comes from your cards. Your cards really tell you what to do and what not to do. So it may seem like a very simple explanation.
And yeah, I know it's very basic. You start with 4 cards. You can have as many cards in your hand as possible, though, because some cards might let you draw an extra card, things like that on your turn. And you can have as many cards in play, too. So you will have quite a few cards laid out in front of you with all of your superpowers, your gadgets, or whatever that you can choose to use each turn. But you can use 1 power per turn. Some are one-shot, single-use cards. So there are limits as to what you can play. And if you want more detailed, we'll link to the main rules, actually, for the game in our show notes.
Yeah, and it's 1 power and 1 card is the typical limit for everybody.
Yep.
I guess we'll start with our components like we normally do. This game doesn't really have a lot as a card game. It's mostly just the cards. I guess I'll kind of start out. The card artwork is, I think, really good. It's for all the games we've played, it probably has some of the best artwork of the games we've reviewed or played.
I'll lay some cards out here for the shot.
I mean, if you look at these characters, I mean, they look like they were actually from a real comic, and I know they're not. These people didn't make up their own characters. They came up with their own environments and everything, but they put a lot of work into it. So you can tell that, you know, they really invested a lot of time and effort. They didn't go out and hire like the cheapest artist out there. They got somebody that did a really good job on these.
And I also like the fact that they do try to make it look like it's an actual comic book universe, like Marvel or whatever. Because on the bottom of the cards, there's a little quote that comes from a supposed episode, or issue. Well, there is no actual comics, but they actually made it up like there is a backstory. Like, oh, there are comics that contain this character, and they said this in that particular comic. But it's just kind of a nice touch. It actually feels like a universe that's been around for a long time. Each character has a backstory and their own powers and everything.
And they're, they wouldn't even really necessarily had to print on both sides, like your deck cards, but then on the back it does say who the character is so that you don't get them all mixed up. But I mean, even these are different for every character too.
Yeah, the backside isn't a standard backside of the card.
It's different for every character, which is, just extra work that they put into it.
A lot of the characters that they have in the deck, villains to heroes are all they're kind of parallel something that's more mainstream, like the Flash or.
They have a lot of heroes that are like a hero you know.
Grey,
well, but in all reality, how many superpowers can there be out there? Between, the universe of comics has been around for around 100 years.
Well, there's more and more kind of more true to life and more realistic comic book heroes.
But there's definitely one character. I see where you're coming from.
Punisher.
There's one that definitely apes Iron Man in here. There's one that definitely apes
Superman.
Superman, and Batman. Even the Wraith is a lot like Batman with the utility belt, even, and everything. But it's cool. It's like I said, like you said, there's only so many things they could do anyway.
Right. As far as the cards go, the one thing I kind of take issue with, and this will kind of get into a little bit of likes and dislikes, is that for a game that is all about the cards aren't necessarily really thin, but they're not really high quality like some cards you'll find in decks either. They're kind of middle of the road, which. I know it was a Kickstarter game, so it's these self-published guys, and for what it is, it's really good. But being a game that's all about the cards, I would have liked to maybe seen some higher quality cards out of them.
I like the fact that in this enhanced edition, I know the box is totally different originally, but it is, and I'm not going to tip it because the cards go everywhere, but they actually designed it with room to hold all of the expansions, and with a divider down the middle, and then they put these little sponge things in here to kind of help prop up cards until you do fill the box up. Which is really, I guess, this well planned out. They've added new divider cards in this version, so you can pull out your decks easily to keep them all separated.
And you do have these little pieces in there, what would we got? 1, 5, 10, and 25 to keep your hit points in check.
True. There are better ways to do it than digging through those bags. We found to be kind of an annoyance, but it works.
Right. Also, there's environment things like if you do +1, if you do -2 damage, or
if you become immune to a certain type of damage.
Right, and there's little...
they're kind of round placeholders, I guess.
Yeah.
To kind of keep where you're at.
And these are just little rectangle pieces that you just kind of lay out. And it's nice to have those little things instead of trying to remember, which can get tricky.
Which is what you had to do with the first edition, too. That was one of the editions.
Which things stack up on you pretty quick, so unless, if you have the first edition, get a notepad.
Yeah, you're going to be taking lots of notes on it.
Great box art, by the way. It's another nice component. The box is pretty sturdy.
How about strategy for everybody in this game? I think that's probably where this game really...
Strategy. I believe legacy character is a must-play almost on every
the
single...
Superman
You
character.
have to play him. He's pretty much the only character that can actually heal other characters, and it seems like these villains are very powerful.
Which is interesting because the first time we played this, Ian played it as him and wasn't really impressed because everything he does for the team. He really doesn't do a whole lot for himself. And towards the end, he really started to like it, and then in our second and third plays, he realized just how crucial he is.
Yeah, when we said we're not going to be him, we want to play all of the different heroes, and then we're like, wow, we really liked having Legacy on our team.
It seems like he's a very key player, and it does seem like he's the Superman, and the overall you have to. It's almost like the priest character or any type of character.
In other characters, not necessarily helping you, but like I played Raw, and there's the staff that you can get, and every time you play that card, you gain 3 points. Like you get 3 points back, and there's probably 5 or so in the deck. Mm-hmm. I had 3 in my hand at one time, and you can use the special power on it and discard it, and then you could put another one back on the next turn. So you could potentially be gaining your own back. So you wouldn't necessarily...
Yeah, some characters do heal themselves.
Right. I know that Taka is or
Haka.
Haka.
Yep.
He also can heal himself. He does have some of those too. So you do have some of those characters that are a little more powerful that can heal themselves, which is beneficial as well.
The big strategy is when you get the game, just flip through the decks. Because every character definitely has their own strategy. And you look, when I first played, do you guys remember which character was that first game? Oh, it was the Iron Man, Absolute Zero. Yep. The power was deal yourself damage. I'm like, why do I want to hurt myself? This is the dumbest superhero ever. Well, eventually I get a card in my hand that says, if he gets freezing damage, because he can do fire and ice, he's out of each hand or whatever, I don't know, it's a suit of armor. But he can, instead of, receiving freezing damage, he can heal that many points instead. I'm like, aha, now my power comes in handy. I can deal damage to heal myself up and recharge myself. So, before you play, instead of looking like an idiot and wondering, what am I supposed to be doing with this character, flip through the deck, get a feel for what's in here, how many cards of each, and just get a feel for the character. Like, okay, I know what cards they have, I know what powers they have, and I have a rough idea of what their strategy should be.
I want to jump on that point just a little bit more. Also, go through the cards just so you can mix them up, because they are all stuck together, and when you first get them, they're all the same in a row.
Yeah, you need to do a good shuffle.
Good shuffle.
Because there are repeats in all the decks.
Look through the deck, look at the artwork, it's good artwork, and then also make sure you shuffle them.
One other thing I would say about strategy is that you can kind of weigh yourself by picking certain characters against certain villains if you kind of read through. And so depending on how challenging you want the game to be for yourself, I mean, you could pick somebody that doesn't heal very well and then pick a villain that really gets you. So, I mean, really you can stack it against you or stack it against the villain. I think if you just kind of learn the characters and who they are, it would...
And along the same lines, each villain has an arch nemesis in the hero. So if you pick the hero that's the arch nemesis of a certain villain, they each do a little extra damage to each other, isn't it?
One.
The hero does one extra damage to the villain does one extra damage to the hero. So that's another way you can kind of...
To that one particular hero, yeah.
In setting up the game, you can really kind of set yourself up for a little, maybe kind of a bonus, I guess, to a certain degree, by picking the right hero.
One of the things I found out as through playing is you're really kind of, it's almost stacked against you, and it's a very fine line as far as percentage-wise. I would say like it's 60-40 against the heroes going in, so it seems like a monumental task. So because the environment kind of hurts you more so than it does help you, at least as far as what I've seen. Your villains tend to stack points very easily, and they get a couple different ways that their minions get to hurt you and they get to hurt you. So it's just kind of, it is stacked a little bit against you, but with that, in a strategy sense, it would be wise to maybe one person around get to do kind of something for themselves versus for the group, to kind of gain a balance of, I'm going to take the healing points this round for myself, or I'm going to draw 2 more cards out of my deck, versus actually help the group or attack, I guess, to maybe keep that balance. And everybody gets to maybe change that per round depending on what they got going on.
And this probably goes without saying in a team game, but know your teammates' heroes and what they do and how they work. If this is a game where, if you're the type of gamer that tends to space off when other people are playing, it's probably not a good idea here, because you want to know what cards they have, what powers they're using, and how you might be able to play off of that power. Because there's, especially like Legacy again, he does a lot to help other players. So if he doesn't know exactly what's going on with the other heroes, he might not know when it's best to use a certain power to help them out. So, like I said, it might go without saying in a co-op game, but just know your hero well.
And then read off your card to the rest of the group too, especially if you're unsure of how it's going to benefit the rest of the group too. Just say, hey, I have this.
And that,
present it.
And that probably gets us into a little bit of likes and dislikes. At least it does for me.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
And what I'm going to jump into is, I've said this in past videos, I have an issue with rules. I like the rules to be very clear. The rule book in this makes it seem very simple. It basically tells you, essentially, read the cards, do what the card says, and it just kind of gives you an outline of how you proceed.
Play goes in this order. The villain does this, and these are the steps of the villain's phase. Then the hero does these steps, and the next hero does the same steps, and then this. And it is, the first time I read it, I'm like, this is the easiest game in the world.
The problem you get into is kind of what Ian was going at, is sometimes you're reading through a card, and it doesn't make sense. They use words, and sometimes it's plural, sometimes it's not plural, and it's unclear how that works. Like some case, one of the, I think it was Legacy, would say, certain cards would say you can use his power on a hero target, and other ones would say you could use it on hero targets, and other cards would say you could use it on each hero target. And it was unclear how that works. Can he use it on all the heroes? Does he have to pick a hero? And we kind of played it as a house rule. We just let him use it on everybody. But the rule book's almost so simple that it doesn't clarify the language they use in the cards, I think.
Yeah, there was that other one that said the person, with the most cards in play. Well, none of us at that point had cards in play. So it's, yes, you can kind of read into it and say, okay, well, since none of us do, we all take damage. But at the same time, do you or don't you? It's not extremely clear on it.
And then Brian's issue with the whole, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with these cards, especially your first time through, or maybe even your fifth time through, and you still maybe haven't gotten to that point yet on a certain character, where you get a card where really it kind of supposed to go with another card, and you got that first before anything else. It's kind of out there. You don't really know what to do with it. You'd rather pitch it, but it's in your hand right now. So
I think like we've kind of talked about here is, I just wish that it was a little more clear in how they worded things, and maybe gave us a little more explanation in the rule book.
Yeah, I agree.
It doesn't ruin the game, but that's an issue I had.
For me, the theme is just like, it just oozes into every part of the game. Your deck and your powers are unique to that character, so that feels like a fully fleshed out. It fits together. This guy's all based on gadgets. This one's all based on speed or whatever. But then you have the cool comic book setting where things are happening around you in the city. And like I said, in the city of Atlantis, all of a sudden the Kraken comes out of nowhere and starts doing damage. Not even necessarily to the heroes. It attacks wherever the weakest is on the board. So it might be like one of the bad guys' minions or something. And all this stuff is going on around you while you're trying to fight this villain, while healing each other. And it ties in with, again, just with the artwork and everything, and it feels like a comic book. It feels like a great nonstop action, like that big fight scene from the Avengers or something. It's just somebody's always blasting something else.
Or a better movie.
I like the Avengers, I don't know.
This game probably has, I think, the best theme of any game we've played. I think it executes on theme better than pretty much any game we've played in, a little over a year we've been doing this.
I agree.
It's, like you said, the artwork, the fact that it gets the environment involved, the flavor text, which we probably didn't spend enough time on, that's on each card. You could
mine, but...
You could really build a good story with it, though. I think it's... Yeah. It would be like you're playing a comic book or playing the Avengers.
And you're up and down with your character.
And they even make the rulebook look like a comic book, which is awesome. The font, everything looks like comics, which is super cool. I almost wish that they would have maybe an online comic on their website or something. Do a little weekly...
Like a little small graphic.
Yeah, a little weekly web comic to read or something to keep you interested and fill in the stories. There's a new hero coming out. They can introduce that hero through an online comic or something. That'd be sweet.
This game is the game I could see just continuing with expansions, because it's...
They have several out and several coming this year.
So well, because it's like a new comic book series, a new storyline, bring out more villains.
Who is the manufacturer on this one?
Greater Than Games. It's a little company. It might even be just them.
Greater Than Games. If you guys come out with more expansions, send it our ways. We will let you know. We'll do updates to the game.
This game I think is really built for that and could continue on for a long time. I think it's a great game for that type of idea.
When it turns into Magic, I'm gonna quit.
We gotta buy decks and
other likes.
I think that's pretty much. We hit
the playtime is pretty good, although it really varies depending on the villain.
Yeah,
we had the hardest, a super hard villain rather, partnered up with just the right environment deck for him. Things just worked out, stacked against us. The game went 2 hours, even though it says 45 minutes to an hour in the box. So it can run long, but we have had that first game was about 45 minutes.
Well, so this last one, it kept telling us to keep going back to what we've already gone through. Keep going back to your discard. So it really kind of drug it out.
Yeah, she had some nasty powers.
That last game was only about an hour 15 still.
It's just.
But it was a whooping. We barely dented her.
And that's probably a good segue into our reviews, I think. If we wanna
do you want to start down with you?
I suppose. I really liked it. I think the art's great. It was a fun play. I played it 2 times tonight and once last week, and I would definitely play it again. I'm going to give it an 8. The artwork really works for me. The rules are a little muddy here and there, and it bothers me a little bit, but overall it's not a deal breaker by any means. The theme is 100%. It's amazing. I just absolutely loved it, so I'm going to stick with an 8 there.
I'm going to jump right on with Andrew, actually. I'm probably going to go an 8 on it, too. And it's probably going to be a theme through all of us, so I can probably keep my review fairly short. Like I said, I have a little bit of a problem with the rules. Some of the language is unclear, but the theme really does it for me. I enjoyed playing it, even though we got whooped twice tonight. Like, beyond belief.
Well, the first one we had the villain knocked down more than
we
2/3. We really whittled him down because he had, 90 hit points to start with. So we did a lot of, but yeah,
And the first time we played, we just walloped him.
Yeah.
Or walloped our villain, whoever that was. I can't remember.
So, like I said, problems with the rules, it can be a very difficult game. Maybe it isn't always a difficult game. But the theme just does it for me. I really got into it. I really like it. I want to play the expansions, and I want to get my butt kicked by the villains a bunch more. I really, really liked it.
I'm close. I'm about probably a 7.5. And instead of saying the same things that we love, I'll say why it's a 7. What detracts from it. So there can be so many cards on the table, especially like the Citizen Dawn character. There were times when she had like 8 minions out, all of these ongoing powers they're called that just stay in play. And so when it got to her phase, there's a set phase. Like at the beginning of their turn, you do this, and then you play a card. Then at the end of the turn, you do. Well, there were some cards that there were like 4 or 5 things that happened to happen at the beginning of her turn. So we had to read all these cards, which cards had an at the beginning phase. We have to make sure we do all those things. She would play a card. Oh, and this card says she gets to draw another extra card. And then she'd have 5 end of her phase things. And it was just, it was almost impossible to keep track of all of the steps to her turn because she had 10 cards laid out. And it's just like her turn just went on forever. That's why we got whooped so bad. So what detracts from me is just, sometimes there's just too many cards that can be into play. And some of the villains, it's really stacked against you. I get you want to make a co-op game hard so you don't win every time. But it was pretty brutal, and it would probably help if we knew the characters a little better and whatnot. But still,
and we play Legacy every single time.
And we use Legacy all the time. The difficulty is definitely up there, though. So that's why I would go with a 7.5. I really enjoyed it, and I want to play it some more. But just know that there's, and I guess that can tie into like that whole, don't play this with little kids. There's tons of text you're always reading, and there's a million rules that you have to make sure you follow in a certain order.
And it's going to be one of those where you want to. What would help it is picking your heroes right. We played it the idea we wanted to play all the heroes.
This hero looks cool. We haven't used this one yet.
Yeah, we want to just get through them all. I think if we went through and really kind of were more strategic in our setup, that might help too.
Yeah. So, but again, 7.5 on the scale of 1 to 10 is a really good score. I liked it a lot, but it's brutal.
Wow. This setup, I want to go with a 9. I want to go with a 9. And the reason being is that this is a game that's still, it seems like it's always in development. You're having your expansions coming out, they're redoing the boxes, they're redoing the inside, they're redoing the rule sets. They're actively trying to make this better and better, and I think this is a game that's just going to get better over time. And every single time that I play this, I want to play it again. I want to play it again the next night. It's fun. It's not repeatable. You don't get the same scenario. You don't get the same situations every single time. It's completely changing, especially with all the expansion. I'm giving it a 9 for the future growth of it. The problems that I have with it now, the way it sits, you guys have already said pretty much what you can about it. I agree. But I think I'm just going to future rate it up, and it is just a really great game to have. And I'd buy it. I'd suggest it to friends. I would break it out to even newbies because it is a theme that hits home with a lot of people.
It's kind of a fun factor thing. It's hard to explain why, but I said we got our butts kicked tonight, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm a superhero. I'm going to kill something. I'm going to hurt a villain. I'm going to do damage to things, and it's fast and it's stackable, and you have all different themes and a bunch of different variety with just yourself and the rest of the group. I mean, it just hits home on a lot of different points. It's just, there's some quirkiness to it, but I think as it expands and as it gets better, it's going to be a better game.
Fair enough. That's our review of Sentinels of the Multiverse. Maybe if we get more expansions going, we can come back and do another review of it, kind of follow up on the game a little bit. maybe. What is our game for next week?
I believe we talked about doing, let us know if you would like us to do this. I think we were talking about doing DC Heroes next week. And then we also, Pat, who's not here tonight, also has Marvel Legendary, so we could do all 3 of the superhero games kind of, because people always say, do I need 3 in my collection? Which one should I get? That would
3 superhero card games.
Yes, 3 superhero card games that are all very popular right now, and they all came out within like a year of each other, roughly. So I think we were going to just review them all 3 back to back like that,
and maybe give you a kind of a wrap up episode of which is the best one, why, that type of stuff.
So DC deck building next week.
And be sure to get over to YouTube. In the last couple days you have, sign up for our contest, subscribe to our account over there, and check out our videos.